All right, guys, welcome back to another interview on Unhinged. I am joined by George Hardwick once again, and this is one of the most podcasts I've been looking forward to, one of the most ever, because we are joined by George Hardwick, Cage Warriors lightweight champion. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you for having me. It's a nice sunny day for once.
Absolutely, I'm just up the road from you. I'm in Newcastle, and the sun's shining. I've got George Hardwick on the other end of the phone. Well, the world is perfect right now.
Yeah, just come back from Edinburgh. I was up at like 3 in the morning because I had to come back from Edinburgh. I was teaching a seminar at Livingston Fight Centre. It was only my second seminar. Me and Harry and Peter Irvin, our coach Peter Irvin in Newcastle.
Yeah,
he was teaching it, and it's an enjoyable thing to do. I'm looking forward to doing a few more seminars.
Yeah, absolutely. A fantastic mind of the game, Peter Irvin, obviously yourself and Harry as well. So a fantastic trio that they had up there in Livingston. So I bet they enjoyed it. I bet it was a good session for them. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me. An absolute pleasure. Before we get into the interview, I'd like to announce that this video is sponsored by Proshmo Bets. He cashed on the weekend, so make sure you cash on this weekend. Don't miss out on Proshmo Bets. Make sure you cash it and don't be too late. But let's talk about what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about we're here to talk about George Hardwick after his last performance against Yann Liasse. An absolutely spectacular, stupendous confectionery from George Hardwick. It was amazing, wasn't it?
Well, because I look back on it, I was like, oh, that's good as a performance. But when I was in there, it didn't feel too comfortable, to be honest, because I had this constant feeling he's going to jump up and throw a flying knee. He's going to try and throw a front kick through the middle of my guard, because I've already noticed a lot of people have been trying this. They're trying uppercuts, they're trying front kicks because they have a tight guard. So I was just aware of that, and I always had this feeling that he was going to change pace. And maybe he would have changed pace and suddenly hit something different. But I can chin him before he does.
And that's exactly what you done. You chinned him, you floored him. But let's talk about as you talked about that performance there. It was pretty much unscathed. It was, in the first few minutes, it was tit for tat. You were trading kicks, you were trading punches. And obviously, you mentioned there, you looking back on your performance now, it was a great performance. But when you're in there, you didn't feel like it was a great performance. So ultimately, how did you kind of feel about that performance and how it went down? And another first round finish. You really can't complain.
I feel there's still stuff to work on, because I mixed in my own southpaw work to kind of diffuse his southpaw, and I can get better at my boxing from southpaw. My kicks felt comfortable in southpaw, but I can definitely improve my boxing from southpaw. That's a big thing, getting a few of them jabs and getting the lead hand going in southpaw. I think the first shot I actually landed to the head was a shot that knocked him down, so I could get more comfortable quicker, but then again, he was a bit awkward, so it took a bit of time to suss out.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He, very long, very rangy. He had a big set of hair, as we can see behind me here. He had a lot of hair, didn't he? But is that how you expected the fight to go in that first round? It started off very tit for tat. You both landing your punches, both landing your kicks. It kind of seemed like he wanted to impose his kicks very quickly. Is that how you expected it to go? Heading into the fight.
See, I knew I'd have to ramp it up and be patient, but I was kind of expecting the fight would be a 5-rounder. Because he hadn't been finished before, not a pro, not even an amateur, and he'd had a long career at both of them. It was like 40 fights combined, amateur and pro, never been finished. There's only one loss to professional. We hadn't really seen him hurt in any fights. We'd just seen him get held down by a wrestler who was something Magomedov. I was like, oh, that guy's obviously going to be a wrestler. That was his one loss. He just got held down for points and pushed against the fence, but he never got hurt. So I like he knows how to defend himself. So I can't expect to bomb him out of there. So I had this big expectation that it was going to go 5 rounds. I was going to have to do like some Demetrius Johnson type work. When he fought John Dodson, especially the second time, John Dodson didn't really open up, but he was always a bit dangerous. So Demetrius had to just attritively just chip him away, go for takedowns, fit the elbows between that. I've expected that kind of fight. That was what I was thinking. I was also stressed about the idea of it going 5 rounds because I had some big farts on the walkout. So it's a good thing it got finished quick and I didn't end up in any body triangles or anything.
Yeah, I feel bad for your coaches walking out for you, or even the fans. They're left in your trail.
Well, it's part of the strat as well, because what happens backstage, and this happened before the Truman fight as well, is you get taken to what's like a holding bay. So there's these two little mat spaces separated by a thin curtain, and you can kind of see the silhouette, the outline of the other fighter walking around in their coaches. I'm like, damn, I need a fart. Well, I'm gonna go to that end. I'm gonna go to his and try and waft it through. Have a little fart and waft it through. Walk back. But yeah, it was tricky. I was throwing kicks on the pads in the warm up, and as I'm opening myself, I feel the farts coming. I'm like, am I gonna just have to box? But then the opposite happened. I just threw kicks and then only threw one punch, and then it was that one punch was the start of the finish.
Let's talk about the start of the finish. Fantastic. As we talked about, you were very patient. You were setting up the whole time. As you talked about your kicks, all to the body, and eventually, you reached the chin. You chinned him. You sat him down. But immediately you went for that guillotine. How did you feel about that? How close was that? Did you want to get that one?
See, when I landed the shot, when you land a good shot, it feels like you've hit nothing. When you land a rubbish shot, it feels like you've hit a brick wall. And probably there's some scientific explanation about kinetic energy displacement when it hits someone rigid and when it hits someone and causes some angular fucking velocity change or what have you. But it felt like I hit nothing at all, so I was actually surprised to see him fall back in his ass. So I walked in, and immediately his head was really close. It didn't feel like there was much resistance to the guillotine, so I thought, oh, I could jump that and I'd get the finish quick. Then he's suddenly starting to work out a bit. Maybe he would have gone out or tapped within the next second or two, but I just felt my shoulders roll on the mat for a second. And what you don't want to be on a guillotine is flat to the mat. Your shoulders flat to the mat. The old Vanderlei Silva reach back and squeeze. You never want to feel that, because that's where they can start to pike up, change the angle of the guillotine, put their fingers inside, hand fight, put the pressure on the shoulder. And if I ended up in a bit of a, it can be quite a stalemated position where it's not enough pressure to finish the choke, but they're stuck in that position. Now, if I did end up in that position, I could have been burning my arms out whilst he's recovering. So I thought, fuck this. I just put my feet on the mat, hit my hardest bridge as I could. And then when I got back up, he was still wobbly. And it was just kind of picking the shots, simple shots, just up and down feints, chop the right hand in to direct him into the left hand, chop the left hook in to direct him into the right hand. And it was like rinse and repeat of that for like 30 seconds a minute.
Yeah, and he was out on his feet on up against the cage. It was it was clear as day. You had him out there. It was a fantastic performance. Spectacular, unscathed. I mean, what are you putting in them Middlesbrough Palmers to keep this this finishing streak alive? I believe that's 6 in a row now. If you have 6 finishes in a row for yourself, that's incredible.
All the Cage Warriors fights finishes. 8 fight win streak, 7 of finishes. All since the return to Cage Warriors finishes. I think it was like 5 knockouts and 1 submission.
Yeah.
So it's plenty of Manjaro sizzler sauce on these Palmos for sure.
That's absolutely phenomenal. But that instinct and just winning to finish a fight. But even when we watch you fight, you're still very patient. It just seems that you find a way to finish that fight, basically.
Yeah, and the patience as well. It comes from experience. It comes as well from past experiences in fights. So when I hurt Driscoll for the first time, that was the 3rd round. And actually, his biggest shots that he lands on me are like the next minute. Within the next minute, he lands his biggest shots because I get hungry for the finish. I start tensing my arms up, looking for that finishing body shot, trying to load into it. And that's what allowed him to hit me. So in this fight, I see him get back up. I've knocked him down. I actually had a conscious thought in the fight. Breathe. Before I throw anything else, breathe. Because I felt my breath go up a little bit. I'd exploded into some punches. I tried that guillotine. And I know if I match that, it's not going to go above it. But if I go crazy and just start throwing and forget to breathe, it gets to a point where it's hard to catch up with. So, yeah, I had a lot of conscious thoughts of just keep the feints going. There was like a little up and down bounce. Keep the feints going. Breathe. And then it's much more effective to finish someone that way, where you just relax. You see the openings come. You just chop the punch in and just whip. And it feels effortless rather than getting too hungry for the finish.
Yeah, man, it was, and you got to finish. You know, it was well deserved. A fantastic performance. But you know,
One second.
lastly, oh,
1 second. I accidentally karate chopped my headphones off.
so not only in and out of fights, he's also dangerous in interviews, karate chopping.
I haven't shown any karate yet.
Absolutely. But yeah, I want to talk about your first title defense against Chris Bungard and how that compares to this title defense against Yann Liasse. Did you feel more comfortable heading into this one because you know you've defended that belt and it kind of let's say legitimized your reign as you know Cage Warriors lightweight champion?
No way. I had way more doubts coming into this one because Chris Bungard, with respect, he's kind of like tailor-made for my style and certain weapons I use. He's kind of a similar fight. It was a bit of a repeat of the Dean Truman fight. It was very similar. So Dean Truman, Chris Bungard, they have a lot of stylistic similarities. Awkward jiu-jitsu guys. They have really good elbows, really good knees. They can tie up in the clinch. But it was very similar. They had the same openings. So I'd kind of been through that before. It was almost, and then the fight panned out almost exactly the same. Dean Truman was a second round body shot KO. Chris Bungard was a second round body shot KO with loads of calf kicks, and all the same weapons landed. Yann Liasse was very different because he had more finishing power and more finishes on his record. I'd say Kyle Driscoll's the most skilled fighter I've fought, yes, because he's from AKA 8-fight win streak when I fought him. Most skilled fighter, contender series win. Yann Liasse was probably most dangerous because he had the most finishes, whether it was submissions or knockouts. He had flying knees, like the really dangerous weapons that just put people out if they catch you. So I had a lot of doubts about certain things. A lot of my weapons, like the liver shot, it's not as open the same way on the southpaw. The right calf kick, it's not that open on the southpaw. The cross counter, you know, where you duck your head and throw that right hand over the jab, it's very different on a southpaw. So I've done it in training with my training partners. Harry can do really good southpaw. I had some good training. I had some sparring with James Power, really good spars. We fought on the same night. And I've done stuff in training, but it's always going to be different into a fight unless you've already done it in a fight. So I had a lot more doubt for this one.
And obviously getting the finish, as we talked about earlier, never been finished in his amateur career, in his professional career. How does that feel? Obviously, finishing a guy who kind of seemed very durable. As you talked about, never really seen him hurt. His only loss was against the guy who wrestled him. So how does that feel? Obviously, finishing the guy, and what does that mean to yourself? Does that kind of prove something to yourself that you can finish these durable guys?
Yeah, and the main thing is that the first, well, all the shots that hurt him were headshots, so it's not just body shots. Yeah. So that was important to get. But yeah, I never make this plan that I'm going to finish people. I think people, when they start the career, sometimes it's the worst thing to start the career and they get 3 knockouts in a row or something like that. When I started my career, I didn't get any knockouts. I was fighting up at welterweight and I wasn't knocking anyone out. I didn't have really good power. I didn't do strength and conditioning properly. I didn't have the good boxing technique that I have now. So I was never knocking anyone out. So I had to go the distance again and again and again with really good guys like Robin Roos and Madas Flaminas. I went the distance in a lot of hard fights, which kind of just trained me to think, okay, that finish doesn't just come. Whereas if I'd come out early in my career and chinned everyone, I might get attached to that and think that's what I'm going to do every fight. Even when I'm finishing someone, I think this fight's going to go on. I'm planning for the next round. I'm planning what are the most effective shots that'll, take it out of him for the next round. I still looked for the body whilst he was hurt. I thought, okay, he's hurt to the head. I've got to get some left hooks to the body. I've got to get the knee to the body. I've got a plan for the next round. And then when it finishes, it's kind of like, oh, I'd expect it to go a lot longer.
Yeah, and I want to talk about moving forward. The future. Obviously, there was a lot of talk of what's next. The UFC, and I think it's you're ready. You're tailor made. That UFC London card. It would make perfect sense. A lot of sense. But what do you see in vision going forward? I know there was a certain person, on the camera, the 145-pound champion Paul Hughes saying that you'd like to, what's better than 1 belt, 2 belts. So what are your thoughts on, maybe what's next and what do you expect Cage Warriors, what route do you reckon they'll go down?
See, I'm going to, if the UFC calls, the UFC calls. I'm keep my mind open, my body ready for July. Whatever opportunities are coming up. There's Paris later in the year, allegedly. There's different European opportunities, or it might be one in the States. So I'm just keeping ready for those. In terms of title defenses, yeah, that would be a huge one against Paul Hughes. I want to stay active. I want to defend my belt, be an active champion, because some champions are just, they don't want to do anything. They think it's a ticket to the UFC and they sit around and sulk. But I think Paul Hughes is just trying to avoid getting battered by Harry and him taking his belt. Harry's next in line for that, 100%, especially with Harilla going off to Contender Series now, I believe. Yep. So Harry's next in line for that title. If he's fighting a Hardwick, it should be Harry.
Absolutely. And then obviously, respect to Harilla going off to, Contender Series, getting that shot. But then to be honest, to me, that makes, I know he's exciting, he's entertaining, he's good for the crowd, good for the fans. But if you look at who we've got in Cage Warriors, I felt like yourself, I feel like you could have got that shot on the Contender Series. Harry could have got that shot on the Contender Series. Paul Hughes, I know Harilla is, he's very exciting for the fans and obviously good to watch. And I feel like that's what they've seen in him. But then again, so are you. So is Paul Hughes. So is Jordan Vicencic. Like, it just makes a lot of sense. But I think Harilla will go off and do some great things. But I thought there was some, better names. But then again, they could be setting up to bring you in for UFC London.
Yeah, my eyes are more peeled towards a carded fight rather than a Contender Series. I'd rather make another main event of Cage Warriors and get the experience being the main event again of the Cage Warriors. There was nothing like it in Manchester. All the up the boroughs screaming. It was insane. I'd rather get another main event like that than a Contender Series fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about, the audience. It kind of really felt like you were a superstar that night. And obviously you were the main card. Main event. You were the top of the bill. You were that superstar. And it felt that, as you talked about the audience up the borough, they were chanting. You were in Manchester. And it kind of felt like you were having an event in Middlesbrough. It was honestly, it was phenomenal. It was what did that mean for you, after, you got everyone chanting, chanting for Middlesbrough. You're in Manchester. How did it feel? Did you kind of feel like, I feel like a little bit of a big deal now because, it kind of felt like I was watching a superstar come out that night. I know we've seen you, fight in the past, defend your belt. You came out against Carl Driscoll. You won that belt. You defended it. But that night, it kind of felt like we felt something special.
Yeah, it was definitely a bit different. When I first had a main event fight as my pro debut on my first time being a professional main event for a card, like local cards, that was in my first and my third professional fights. I sold like 2 tickets each for them when I was first having professional fights. And then it was just completely other end of the spectrum, seeing so many people I knew. As I'm walking out, it was actually a little bit distracting. I had to give Pat Benatar my best rendition of Heartbreaker as I'm walking out, just so I don't get too distracted by all these faces I know and all these up the boroughs. And walking through the crowd after with the belt was just magical. All these up the boroughs, people coming in for selfies. There's nothing that felt like that before. But yeah, I can't really describe it. It was very odd. And then the next day it just comes back down to normal. You just want the next thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You're next day, you're just a lad from Middlesbrough who eats palmos, and you just feel like, what just happened yesterday? It was phenomenal. But as we talked about, I want to quickly circle back with the Paul Hughes. Would that be like if Cage Warriors come back to you and they say, this fight is on the table, would that be your favorable matchup next that you would like in Cage Warriors? You talked about it, and I feel like it's another experience. It's another challenge for yourself. 145-pound champion coming up to 155. It just brings that, as you talked about, it just brings that another experience, and that is going to make it tailor-made, ready for the UFC next when it comes.
It would be a huge fight, arguably the biggest title fight in Cage Warriors. Yeah, it would be the biggest title fight in Cage Warriors history, really. He's got a big name to him. No one's been as prolific a finisher as I have in Cage Warriors and got this many title defenses really as a lightweight. It would be a huge fight. But Harry would need at least an interim fight. I'm thinking of other names. I was thinking of a fight between him and Harilla. would be the most exciting fight you could make in Cage Warriors. What other names in that division? You've got Charrier or Albert Diaz. Interesting. Actually want to train together at some point again. Be meaning to go back to BST.
Trains, BST, innit? Blood, Sweat, Tears.
Yeah. Harry's been a few times. I've been once, and actually interested to go train there again.
Yeah, they've got some killers down there in Blood, Sweat, Tears. Off the top of my head, maybe Jake Hadley, Jack, or I think anyway, off the top of my head. Yeah, the Modestus Galkus trained there a little bit as well. They've got some really good names over there. So Blood, Sweat, Tears, they've got some really good underrated names. But I think it's Jake Hadley. I'm not sure.
I think Jake Hadley splits his time between his own gym and Renegade. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone.
And see, I'm not too sure whether it was Blood, Sweat, Tears or Renegade. That would make sense. He's from Birmingham. But yeah, we'll move on. Obviously, my last few questions I have for you is recently, if you look over the headlines, look all over the media, it's your TikTok. You're a sensation. You're a TikTok sensation. What has happened?
I just like they're just fun and easy to make. Sometimes people get so stressed about content creation and I need this strategy and I need this strategy. TikTok's a gift. You just get sometimes people asking an actual technical question, which I love to answer. I love to answer how to counter someone's jab with calf kicks and this and that and the other thing, because I'm a nerd for punches and kicks above anything else. Sometimes you just get these hilarious voice notes and saying, yeah, you should fight Paddy. You're the next Conor. I can't understand them, and it's just brilliant. And it's just like automatic stuff. And it can be a means for me to vent my own rants or little technical details that I want to share with people that no one in the real world, as I'm waiting for a bus, wants to hear. The weirdos. But I can put it on there.
Absolutely. Go check out Harry and George Hardwick's TikTok. It's phenomenal. I saw one the other day, obviously talking about an amateur wanting to go pro and etc. I feel like he gives some really good advice, and as you talked about, it's just really easy, really good, really easy content, and it just brings I feel like it's getting your profile out there a lot more to obviously different viewers.
Yeah, it's insane because there's a bit more of a production value to YouTube and these other types of media, I feel, a lot of time. Whereas these short forms, the TikToks and the Reels, you can just shoot them out, and then suddenly you check back on them a week later. Wow, where's it got 500,000 views for? And you don't know who's watching it.
Yeah, I think you content. I like it when you break down your old fights. I think I watched one of your TikToks where you broke down your first ever fight. Look at your hairstyle and look at how you used to fight back then. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, those were the first videos I did on TikTok, which actually like blew up in terms of, that kind of mini viral, whatever, million views or whatever. And I was surprised because I thought, it's all short dance trends or whatever. I'd ping up some really long 5-minute videos of anal analytic martial arts stuff, and that's done really well. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, and I don't want to say you're the creator, but if you look all the promotions are using it. I've seen FCC, they use it with that, the past fighters. I see Teddy Stringler, he uses it. I don't want to say you're the creator, but a lot of people are adopting that strategy now.
Yeah, I've seen a few more breakdowns, which is just good. It's more knowledge being shared around. I don't think anyone fits in the kind of Bloodborne or Resident Evil references that I fit in, or the Devil May Cry references, and all these random games I've played too much of my life on. But yeah, it's good to see more people putting themselves out there, breaking down fights, giving more material. Yeah, it's good.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time, George. An absolute pleasure. I love to see what your next career move is, whether it's the UFC on July in the UFC London, whether it's Paul Hughes at 145 stepping up. I feel like there's a lot of options out there for you now, and I feel like you used to be the hunter, and now I feel like you're getting hunted by everyone.
Yeah, options are a good thing.
Exactly. Options means money.
Whether it's that or I'm sure there's a brand of instant hot chocolate called Options. So yeah, there must be a good thing.
Absolutely. You've got so many options, honestly, that it's phenomenal. UFC, without a doubt, has to come cool in the next few, whether it's the next few weeks, just if I'm the UFC, maybe because I'm English, I'm getting you on the card, 100%. I think it just makes a lot of sense for me. And obviously, if it's Cage Warriors 145, Paul Hughes stepping up, as you talked about, the biggest title fight in Cage Warriors history. That would be some build up
in Dublin. Get a load of Guinness and rolling donut after.
You would love it in Dublin. Is that you'd like it in Dublin?
Oh yeah, that would be amazing. I love Dublin, but I haven't been for a while. I'm always wearing the Gaelic football shorts, so feels like I'm wearing nothing at all.
That would be good though. That would be good in Dublin. Obviously, Hughes being Irish, going over there, it just kind of adds up. To the experience, as you talked about. You'd rather do this instead of go to Contender Series. All this is building up for when you get to the UFC. And, you've been there, you've done it, basically.
Yeah, it's that. I don't want to rush out these opportunities. I've got these 5-round title fights, these main events. They're all brilliant experience. So I'm not in a rush. I'm not going to be one of these sulky champions that thinks that they're just owed a shot at this UFC fight on this card. Because in reality, it doesn't work like that. You have to be ready at the right time for the right card, and you might not even know the opportunity until like 3 weeks, something like that. So in the real world, you can't be a city mopey, sit around, mope, wait for the opportunity, because you can lose years of your competitive career, your prime, doing that. And I want to compete.
Yeah,
and both breakdowns of them.
It shows that the UFC know about you, because obviously you talked about on the other episode you talked about the short notice deal contract, and obviously you weren't ready. So it knows that you're about. It's just timing, as you talked about.
Yeah, it's the most no guarantees sport of any sport.
Absolutely. George, an absolute pleasure. I wish you the best luck in the future. Enjoy the sunny day. Obviously here in we're both up north. And hopefully, I'm not too sure if you're a big football fan, but hopefully Middlesbrough go through. They might play Sunderland in the final.
I've no idea. I've just had
I know you had no idea.
I've just had a strong mint green tea. It's went right through me, and I'm gonna need to shit and go to the gym.
Enjoy the rest of your day, George. An absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I can't thank you so enough. And I'm giving you time out of day. I know you're very busy. I know with that fame that you have now, I bet you haven't got it 15 minutes like you did before.
No, it's all that blue tick does is make people think I'm wadded when I'm not.
Thanks so much, George. Yeah, thanks for having me. Absolute pleasure. You're a superstar. Thanks so much.
Thank you.